Welcome to Finance Empire, real-life stories that don't just improve your English, but also change the way you think about life. Have you ever worked so hard that you finally got what you wanted, and then suddenly felt like you weren't ready for it? Imagine this. You've been staying late at work, giving your best, doing everything right. And one day, it finally happens. You get promoted. At first, it feels like a dream. You feel proud, excited, maybe even a little powerful. But what if I told you that sometimes success doesn't feel like success at all? Sometimes it feels like fear. This is the story of someone who got everything they wanted and then realized they might not be ready for it. It started like any other Monday morning. You walked into the office with your usual coffee in hand, expecting a normal day. Emails, meetings, maybe a few tasks. Nothing unusual. But today was different. Your manager called you into their office. You sat down, slightly confused but calm. Then you noticed something. A smile on their face. "Congratulations," they said. For a moment, everything went silent. You've been promoted. Your heart skipped a beat. Promotion. The word echoed in your mind again and again. You wanted to feel confident, strong, ready. But instead, something else quietly appeared. Doubt. You forced a smile. "Thank you," you said, trying to sound confident. But inside your mind was racing. Me? Am I really ready for this? Your manager continued explaining your new role, new responsibilities, bigger tasks, more expectations. You nodded, smiled, even laughed at the right moments. But the truth? You didn't understand half of what was being said. Reports, deadlines, projects, meetings. It all sounded like a different language. You walked out of the office holding that promotion letter. And instead of feeling light, it felt heavy. Your coworkers congratulated you. "You deserve it. Finally, your hard work paid off." You smiled, said thank you. But deep inside, a small voice whispered, "What if I fail?" You sat at your desk and opened your laptop. Your inbox was already filling up. New emails, new responsibilities, new expectations. You opened your first file and froze. Spreadsheets you had never seen before. Formulas you didn't understand. Notes written in a style that made no sense to you. Your mind started spinning. How am I going to do this? You tried to focus, but your thoughts kept interrupting you. What if I make a mistake? What if my boss realizes I'm not good enough? What if I don't belong here? By lunchtime, the excitement was gone. Completely gone. The promotion no longer felt like a reward. It felt like pressure. Heavy pressure. You took a sip of your coffee, staring at your screen. "Okay," you whispered to yourself. "Calm down, you can do this. Just figure it out step by step." But deep down you knew something. This was only the beginning. The real challenge wasn't getting the promotion, it was surviving it. The next few hours felt like a blur. Your first task was a report due by the end of the day. You opened the files, trying to understand what needed to be done, but the instructions were unclear. Some things were missing. Some didn't make sense. You clicked from one tab to another, hoping something would become clear. Nothing did. Your breathing got heavier. How am I supposed to finish this? Then came your first meeting as a manager. People were talking fast, using words like metrics, KPIs, strategies. You sat there nodding, writing notes, pretending you understood. But inside, panic. Pure panic. After the meeting, you returned to your desk and tried to work. Hours passed. Progress was slow. Every time you solved one small problem, two more appeared. You made small mistakes. Typos in emails. Wrong numbers in spreadsheets. Forgetting to reply to messages. Nothing huge, but enough to shake your confidence. Then your phone buzzed. A message from your manager. "How's the report coming along?" Your stomach tightened. This was the moment. Do you tell the truth or pretend everything is fine? You stared at the screen for a few seconds. Then you did something that felt very uncomfortable. You messaged a coworker. "Hey, can you help me with this report? I'm a bit stuck." Your finger hovered over the send button. What if they think I'm incompetent? But you pressed send anyway. A few minutes later, a reply came. "Of course, let's go through it together." Relief hit you instantly, but it came with a small feeling of embarrassment. You had always been independent. always solved things on your own. Asking for help felt different, but also necessary. With their help, you finally completed the report. It wasn't perfect, but it was done. You leaned back in your chair, exhausted. This is harder than I thought, you admitted to yourself. The dream had turned into a challenge, a big one. That evening you went home tired, but thoughtful. Because despite everything, there was still a small voice inside you saying, "Don't give up." The next morning, you walked into the office with a different feeling. Not excitement, not confidence, but determination. Your desk was already full again. Emails, tasks, reminders. You decided to start with something simple, but even the simple task felt confusing. Now everything felt difficult. Every file raised questions. Every task felt unfamiliar. Your confidence was slowly slipping. Then your phone buzzed again. "Can you review this before the client meeting?" You looked at the document and froze. You didn't even know where to start. If I say yes, can I actually do it? If I say no, will they think I'm lazy? You sat there, stuck between fear and responsibility. Meetings came and went. People talked. You nodded. But inside, the same thought kept repeating. Everyone knows what they're doing, except me. By lunchtime, your anxiety reached its peak. You opened a task, stared at it for 5 minutes, and your mind went completely blank. You leaned back in your chair, closed your eyes for a second. "I can't do this. I'm drowning. I'm going to fail." You quickly stood up and went outside for some fresh air. The cold breeze hit your face. You took a deep breath, then another. "Relax," you told yourself. "It's okay to feel overwhelmed. You just need a plan." But even that felt unclear. Where do you start? Who do you ask? How do you avoid making mistakes? You walked back inside, sat at your desk, and made a decision. You couldn't keep pretending. You needed help. This time you didn't hesitate much. You messaged a coworker again. "I'm struggling with this. Can we go through it together?" The reply came quickly. "Sure, let's sit together this afternoon." Relief again, but also something new. Acceptance. Maybe asking for help wasn't weakness. Maybe it was part of the process. That afternoon you worked side by side with your coworker, step by step. Things started making sense. Not everything, but enough. Small progress, small wins, and for the first time, a little hope. By the end of the day you were still tired, still overwhelmed, but slightly better than yesterday. And that mattered. Because deep down, something had started to change. You weren't running away anymore. You were facing it, one step at a time. And you didn't know it yet. But very soon, something would happen that would test you even more. A mistake. A real one. The kind that makes you question everything. And that moment would either break your confidence completely or start building the real version of you. In the next part, you'll see what happens when things go wrong and how one mistake can change everything. So stay with me, because the real lesson is just about to begin. Have you ever felt like you're not good enough for the position you are in? Like everyone around you knows what they're doing, except you? Imagine stepping into a role you worked so hard to achieve, only to feel lost the moment you arrive. That quiet fear inside you, that voice that says, "You don't belong here." This is not just a story, this is something many people go through but rarely talk about. Let's continue the journey. After a few difficult days in your new role, something happened that shook you deeply. It was a normal afternoon. You were working on multiple tasks at once, switching between emails, spreadsheets, and meeting notes. Your mind was already overloaded, but you kept pushing yourself. "I just need to get through today," you told yourself. Then it happened. You sent an email to a client. At first, it felt like just another task completed. You leaned back slightly, thinking maybe you were finally catching up. But a few minutes later, something didn't feel right. You opened the file again, and your heart dropped. The numbers were wrong. Completely wrong. You had copied the wrong data into the report. Your chest tightened. No. You quickly checked the email again. It had already been delivered. There was no going back. Your mind started racing. What if the client notices? What if they complain? What if my manager finds out? Within an hour, your worst fear came true. The client replied, politely, but clearly pointing out the mistake. In that moment, everything felt heavy. Your face grew warm. Your hands felt cold. You stared at the screen, unable to move for a few seconds. I messed up. You quickly tried to fix the mistake, double-checking everything again and again. But the pressure made it harder to focus. Every number looked confusing. Every second felt longer. Then your manager called you into their office. Your heart started beating faster. This is it, you thought. I'm in trouble. You walked in slowly, trying to stay calm. I saw the email, your manager said. You waited for disappointment, maybe even anger. But instead they spoke calmly. It's okay. Mistakes happen. Just be more careful next time. You blinked. That wasn't the reaction you expected. But instead of feeling relieved, you felt something else. Embarrassment. You had been trying so hard to prove yourself, and now this. Back at your desk, you couldn't focus. That one mistake kept replaying in your mind. Maybe I'm not ready for this. Maybe they chose the wrong person. The doubt grew stronger. Every task now felt heavier. Every email felt risky. You started checking everything 3 times, 4 times, sometimes even more. But instead of feeling confident, you felt exhausted. By lunchtime, your energy was completely drained. You sat quietly, thinking about what had happened. Then something shifted. You realized something important. Mistakes are not the problem. Hiding from them is. You took a deep breath. Okay, you told yourself. What can I learn from this? That evening you stayed late. Not because you were forced to, but because you wanted to understand. You opened tutorials, you reviewed old reports, you made notes. You even created a small checklist for yourself. Check numbers twice. Review before sending. Take a short break before final submission. Simple things, but powerful. Slowly the panic started to fade. In its place, a small sense of control appeared. The next day, things were still challenging. Tasks were still difficult, but you approached them differently. Instead of rushing, you slowed down. Instead of pretending, you asked questions. At first it felt uncomfortable. Can you explain this part again? Just to confirm, is this correct? But something surprising happened. People didn't judge you, they helped you. And more than that, they respected your effort. One afternoon, you were given a new project. It wasn't small. It required planning, coordination, and attention to detail. Your first reaction was fear. I can't do this. But then you paused. No, I can try. You broke the project into smaller steps, one task at a time. You asked for guidance where needed. You took notes during discussions. And slowly, something amazing happened. You started understanding. Not everything, but enough to move forward. Days passed, then weeks, and something began to change. The fear that once controlled you started losing its power. You still made mistakes, but now you didn't panic. You learned. You adjusted. You improved. Small wins started appearing. Completing a task correctly. Understanding a concept. Helping a teammate. Each small win built your confidence. One step at a time. Then one day during a meeting, something unexpected happened. Your manager asked for input. Usually you would stay quiet, but this time, you spoke. Your voice wasn't perfect, but it was clear. You shared your idea. There was a short silence, then your manager nodded. That's a good point. In that moment, something changed inside you. You weren't just surviving anymore. You were growing. Later that week, a colleague came to you for help. You paused for a second. Me? But then you smiled. Yeah, I can help. As you explained the task, you realized something. You understood more than you thought. That realization was powerful. You weren't the same person who walked into this role feeling lost. You had changed. Not overnight, but through effort, through mistakes, through courage, and most importantly, through persistence. Of course, not everything was perfect. There were still stressful days, there were still moments of doubt. But now those moments didn't control you. You had something stronger. Confidence built through experience. One evening, As you packed your bag to leave the office, you paused for a moment. You looked around. The same place that once felt overwhelming now felt familiar. Not easy, but manageable. You smiled slightly. I'm getting there. And that was enough. Because growth doesn't happen in big moments. It happens in small steps. Every question you ask, every mistake you learn from, every time you choose not to give up. That's where real progress lives. And the truth is, you are never unqualified. You are just inexperienced, and experience can be built if you stay patient, if you stay humble, and if you keep going. So if you're ever in a situation where you feel lost, where you feel like you don't belong, remember this story. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to learn. Because one day, you'll look back and realize you didn't just survive, you grew into someone stronger. And in the next story, we're going to explore another powerful situation. When success brings pressure from people around you and how to handle it without losing yourself. So stay with us, because your journey is just getting started.